Hey everyone, it's Horror Free For All, and I hope you're doing well today. So, I have here a discussion that I've been wanting to make for some time, and it involves the horror anthology subgenre as a whole. Whether we're talking about movies, television series, comic books, short story collections, or even book series, I have always been a major proponent and advocate for horror anthology as a subgenre. And I think it's critically overlooked in the grand scheme of horror discussion. Now, with that being said, there are 5 tropes in particular that I want to discuss that are heavily prevalent and heavily scrutinized within the subgenre that will always be used. Now, I don't say by any stretch of the mean that what I'm going to say is endorsing that we should scrutinize the subgenre for constantly using these. In fact, I'm actually celebrating these tropes because of how versatile they are, because of how easy they are to form short form storytelling and truncated storytelling around, and how iconic they really are when there is good character writing, good creative twists added onto them to make them pop, and when they're just made with quality in mind, whether with a skilled writer or a talented director and producer. So, I want to create a game for you. Before we go any further and talk about these tropes, I want you to go out there and hunt you down something horror anthology related that you've been wanting to experience. Whether it's a comic book series that you've never read before, whether it's a horror anthology television series that you've never watched before, or a movie that you haven't seen before, or a book series, kind of like Goosebumps, that you haven't read before, or maybe even a short story collection that you've had your eyes on but haven't had the chance or the time to read. Do me a favor. Unless we're talking about a movie that already has built in 3 to 5 stories, just pick the movie and watch those. But if you're looking at everything else, I want you to go into that series that you've been eyeballing or come across. Pick out 5 random stories, or maybe 3 at the minimum. And I want you to read them or watch them. Then I want you to come back to me after we talk about these tropes and tell me which ones you saw. Because I promise you, to everyone out there watching, you're bound to have at least 1, and I would even bet 2 out of 3. If we're talking 5, you're bound to probably have at least 3 to 4 out of 5. So that's a lot. That's saying a lot, and that's a tall order. But I can promise you, these tropes are everywhere in the subgenre. Okay, and as much as I've been a lifelong fan, I want to point these out because I see nowadays people use these to scrutinize and to downplay the greatness of the subgenre. And in a lot of ways, I can kind of see why, because some people I've heard argue, or actually, I've heard many people argue this, is that horror anthologies are often low budget garbage because studios don't believe in them. They're the same old stories being reskinned constantly, which is true to an extent if we're just talking about the tropes. But the last one really makes me think, and I've actually thought this on my own as well, and that is that often than not, writers such as like R.L. Stine, Stephen King, or maybe you look at television shows with the same writers, or comic book series with the same writers, you name it. They get into this coasting mentality where they literally just pump these out because they're easy to make. They're going to sell issues, they're going to, sell an episode to a network, or they're going to, they have to have an additional segment in a movie, you name it. So they throw together these tried and true overdone tropes and do nothing else with it just to have something to put out there. And sadly, that is a phenomenon. But, even despite those criticisms and some of them having some weight to them, these tropes still do work. Because when we're talking about short form and truncated storytelling, you need to have some sort of rudimentary basis to fit a time crunch, to fit a page constraint. And these 5 are, I think, done the most because they're the easiest to facilitate that with historically. A lot of the times you're going to see these 5, mainly, I would say, in TV shows and in comic books. And those are because they have the biggest constraints to them. Because comic books are normally limited to maybe 4 to 10 pages of story, unless you're talking about a series that dedicates the entire 16 to 24 pages that runs for the comic to one story or something like that. But the general gist of it, for comics at least, is like 4 to 10 pages. So you only have so many panels to tell your story. And for TV shows, if we're talking syndicated, normally it can range depending on the layout of the show, but they can range between 8 to 22 minutes. If we're talking streaming, they can run a bit longer and have the more organic length to them, if need be. But even then, they're probably still under a time crunch. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, you can have up to here, but try not to go all the way there if you can avoid it. So they're still given parameters to try to work around. It's a bit different in like movies, I would say, but even movies, if you have, like, for example, a film like Creepshow, which is 5 segments and almost exactly 2 hours, you still have a time crunch there because you have 5 stories and a wraparound to include. So you got to get your point across, and you got to get the gist of the story out there so you can move on to the next one, right? So you only have so much time to work with. Short story collections and book series like Goosebumps, or like you go pick like Night Shift from Stephen King, they're a bit different because that's up to the author's discretion. But even then, the publisher can be like, you know what, remember, this is a short story collection. We're not trying to sell like some 600-page short story collection of like 12, 14 stories. Keep it short. Or, hey, R.L. Stine, you're writing a Goosebumps book. These are like 110, 120 pages. We don't need you to make a 300-page Goosebumps book. You know what I mean? So that's still a thing, right? So you'll find these tropes even in stuff that has more liberties like short story collections and books too, because authors, writers for a TV show, you name it, they all look to these when they're given a time crunch or a time frame to meet. And these are just like tried and true formulas that are honestly stackable. You don't have to have just one in a story. If you did the challenge, I wouldn't be shocked if you probably saw at least 2 to 3 of these tropes in one of the things you picked. It happens. It does happen. It really does. So yeah, I'm really excited. I want to get on to talking about the tropes now. So let's start off with the first one. Y'all. So this is in my opinion, the most populous one. This trope alone basically built the popularity of Tales from the Crypt's TV show. I'm just going to put that out there. It is pretty much the most populous trope that you'll see in that show. But it's also in a lot of things. It's in a lot of things. And it's the trope of you get what you deserve. Now, this trope is exactly how it sounds. If you do bad to others, or if you do a really bad thing, or if you're just an unlikable person that has karmic justice with a big fat X tattooed on your back, it's going to come to you. It's going to bite you. It's going to hit you like a boomerang. That's the moral gut punch of the story in any story that you have this morality play in. And I say morality play because often than not, you get what you deserve is done up as a morality tale. And it's often than not used to show the reader or show the viewer that if you act like this person, or if you do something like this person did, karma's going to get you, right? So you should not do these things, because then the universe won't be trying to fix the mistakes that you made. You know what I'm saying? And there's so many different examples that you can pull. I could share one, but I feel like if I share one, I'd have to share another, and I don't want to get into too many examples. But if you want to hear my favorite one, of this trope that I think I've come across in my lifetime. My absolute favorite one is in All Through the House from Tales from the Crypt. And I'm mainly talking about the episode version, but in All Through the House from the EC Comics comic version counterpart of the story as well, that's also one of my favorite EC comic horror stories of all time. And this one's about a woman who takes the life of her husband. And at the same exact time, an insane asylum patient escapes, and he dresses like Santa Claus and comes to terrorize her in an isolated house all by her lonesome. Or I think she has a daughter in the story, but still her husband's not there to protect her. And because she took the life of her husband, she now has to face this attacker alone. But the moral gut punch is she had this coming to her because she took the life of her husband. So yeah, I mean, that's just my favorite example. I'm sure that a lot of you have your favorites. Go put them down in the comment section. But yeah, this one is easily the most populous. You're going to see this one in everything. I promise you. And yeah, time to move on to the next one. So number 2, this is probably the second most populous one. And it's called Be Careful What You Wish For. Now, this trope basically plays on either the all that glitters is gold or the grass is greener on the other side trope, where, you know, in tandem with Be Careful What You Wish For, a character believes that the grass is greener on the other side, or all that glitters is gold. And when they're given the glittery gold, or when they go to the other side where the grass is supposedly greener, they learn the harsh reality that that is not the case. And now that they've either changed their life to, you know, be centered around this glittery gold or this new green lawn, they're stuck there. And even if they try to reverse it, there's going to be lasting ramifications, right? And if you couldn't pick up with what I was saying with that analogy, basically like, you know, you ask and you shall receive. But what you receive might not be what was intended. You get what I'm saying? So my favorite story of this trope is probably another Tales from the Crypt episode, a favorite of mine, and it's called Till Death. This one's a very tropey story from Tales from the Crypt, but, you know, it tugs at my heartstrings. It's a very well-made one at that. It's about this gentleman who is having an affair with this voodoo priestess, and this voodoo priestess is upset that he will not give up his, I guess, formal lover that I guess society knows him to be with for her, after he asks her help to essentially have this woman obsessed with him forever. And the voodoo priestess just does that. She gives him a love potion and intoxicates her with it. And he thinks that he's going to get what he wants out of it. But he learns the harsh reality that that's not what he wanted. That's not what he intended. And as a matter of fact, this also has some layers of you get what you deserve in it because of how he treated the voodoo priestess. But you get what I'm saying? He wanted this life with this woman, and the life he's been given now is horrific. I won't get into the spoiler because I'll definitely spoil the twist of it. But you get what I'm saying? Like, this trope is in a lot of things. And you probably saw this if you did the challenge. So if you have a favorite of this one, also let me know down in the comment section. So moving on to number 3. This one is mostly a twist reveal a lot of the times. But this trope is used because it's easy to pull the rug out of from under somebody who's never seen it done before. And it's the they were blank all along. And what I mean by that is either the main character or maybe the villains in question or a certain set of side characters that have some peculiarity to them are revealed to be monsters, such as werewolves or vampires all along. And the main character realizes that they're basically paddling up Schitt's Creek. You know what I mean? Like, they're screwed. Or the main character can be a monster all along to surprise certain characters that deserve some karmic justice, right? This is another one that you can add together with some stuff. This trope is used a lot because when you want a twist that you don't see coming, this is often one that is an easy left field one to use if you want something to spice up a story. And the most famous example of this, in my opinion, is also another Tales from the Crypt story that, although it's not my favorite, I think is a golden example of it, and it sticks out on my brain whenever I think about this trope. And it's called The Secret. And this story is about a boy who's an orphan, and he's adopted by a couple, but the couple is kind of strange and locks this boy away in his room all day. And then at night, they come home and they're, I guess, more active. Well, the boy thinks that something is going on with his parents and does some investigating and realizes that the parents might have some ulterior motives with him. So he comes up with this scheme to try to escape. And as you'd expect, the parents try to stop the boy from escaping. But the plot twist is, but not only do we learn that the parents in question were blank all along, we learn that the boy was a blank all along. So that's the twist, right? It's a cheesy thing I think that can be done nowadays. I think if this is not the most eye-rolling one, it is the one that you see done more in like kid-friendly media and stuff like that, and it does have that corny nature to it. But I still find a lot of charm with it when it's used effectively, and sometimes it can be downright petrifying depending on the situation. Like maybe if there's like an alien story and an author wants to, make a character kind of like, they've been assimilated with a shape-shifting alien, and we figured out that, this character was the alien all along. They can do something fun with that, and it can be terrifying. But yeah, most of the time, that's basically what you're expecting out of that. So yeah, if you saw this one, or maybe you have a favorite of this trope, also put it down in the comment section. All right, and moving on to the final two here. Now, these two are probably the least of the most used, but they still are prevalent. And number 4 is kind of in tandem here with number 3 in some ways, but it has its own subcategory. And that is the out-of-place character is behind it all. So often than not, when you're dealing with horror anthology stories, you might come across a story that has a character that rings all the red alarm bells in your brain, or they come off too peculiar, they come off too intimidating, too you shouldn't mess with them, right? Or maybe they're out front and obvious that these guys are unhinged, that these guys are trying to set these characters up, whether it be just a main character or a group of characters up for failure, right? And it turns out the plot twist is that this out-of-place character did this deliberately to get their way with them, right? This trope is done so much. I would say arguably done more than number 5. But this one is more case-specific because it actually requires a character in the story to be like that, right? And a classic example to me that I think about is an episode from Creepshow that involved an exterminator played by Keith David. I can't remember the name of the episode off the top of my head. And I don't want to, keep y'all waiting. If it comes to me, I'll mention it. But it's essentially about an exterminator that he's visited by this older gentleman who possibly has better exterminating equipment. And the gentleman gets this equipment from this guy, and let's just say it causes him to get some abilities that he didn't see coming. And he decides, because he has some prejudice and beliefs over, I guess, the poor class, he decides to use it against them to practice his craft. But because he did that, wouldn't you know it, the character who gave him this stuff was testing him and has decided to punish him for what he's done. And yeah, as you can expect, character gets some you get what you deserve elements in the story as well. But the main gist of it was, the main plot twist was, hey, look, this guy that was pretty much obviously going to be a player in how the main character is going to end up is revealed to be, the purveyor of what happened to him. So that is the trope, right? So yeah, there's many examples out there of this. I'm pretty sure I'm leaving a lot out. If you have a favorite, go ahead and put it down in the comment section as well. But the last one, and this is the last one we're going to talk about in this video. This one is a very annoying one because of how blatant it is. And this is another case-specific one, and it requires a certain setup or format. But the slash trope is the trope of the advantage slashed cursed item is in fact a bad thing. Now you might be like, well, if it's something is a cursed item, obviously that's a bad thing, right? But an advantage being a bad thing. The reason why I put a slash there is because often than not, an advantage and the cursed item go down the same trajectory for the characters. They get an advantage that somehow gives them a leg up over competition, or gives them abilities that they never thought they would have in their wildest dreams. But the advantage comes with a price. The advantage comes with a cost. And it ends up being a bad thing. Either, you can go back to be careful what you wish for with the advantage one, but the reason, what separates the advantage with be careful what you wish for is that while you can change your life and be careful what you wish for, if you forget your identity because of the advantage, if you let this advantage consume you and change who you are as a person, then it's a bad thing. That's why it's separated there. The cursed item would be like a cursed toy or a car that is possessed by the spirit of a serial killer or something being given to you. And you knowingly know that information up front, or maybe you learn that information afterward. But you have this gravitation to the item. The item still has this mystique to it. Maybe it's trying to convince you that it's not a bad thing. But it ends up still being a bad thing by the end. Because you got played. Or you didn't listen to people. Or you were ignorant to the people trying to warn you. This trope, it can be annoying with that. And a lot of the times, people are probably annoyed with the characters for disregarding those bits of information. But it's there, right? So the advantage cursed item is in fact a bad thing. The example that comes to my head the most is another Creep Show episode. And it's called The Hat. And this one is about a guy who is a struggling writer. But he is given a hat thought to be owned by a prolific writer from, I guess, a publisher or maybe his editor or something. And he puts the hat on, and once he puts the hat on, he is writing fiction. I mean, he is like just blazing through it, and he's getting all this work accomplished. He's getting all these books made, and they're good quality, and the publishers love it, and he's making a lot of money and having a successful career. But at the same time, he's losing track of his time. He has no memory of what he's been doing while he's, undergoing his writing process. His marriage is falling apart. So this does have some notes of be careful what you wish for in its veins as well. But it turns out he realizes that the hat is indeed the advantage that is a bad thing. Because what it's doing to his body, what it's doing to his life, it's not a real advantage, right? It is a bad thing, right? And that is the actual twist of the story that he learns. But there's another element involving certain character that plays a role in it. You can also throw in the out-of-place characters behind it all. But still, that goes back to my point before we got into talking about these tropes, that you can literally combine these together, and often than not, they are always being combined because they go well together. Remember the peanut butter and jelly, right? So yeah, that's the example I pulled for that one. But if you have a better one or one that comes to mind for you, also put it down in the comments section. So yeah, the gist of this whole exercise was to show you these are 5 tropes that you will constantly find in horror anthologies out there. Now, going back to what I wanted to talk about earlier, about the naysayers, about, the coasting issues and whatnot. I get why these can be annoying if the crux of the stories, right, are literally trying to apex solely on the tropes and they're offering nothing creative with it, right? Creative to me is, knowing that these tropes exist, but you find a workaround with them. You use the tropes, but you try to use them in a different way that you haven't seen done before, or use them in a way that brings some commentary or subtext to it, enriches the moral a little bit, adds on to it, makes it more layered, makes it more complex. The more simple stuff like these tropes are, in its simplistic form, can be boring. It can be tiring. It can feel like writers are just coasting along, trying to get that paycheck and not really giving a shit about what they're putting out in the ether. So I get it to a degree. But without these tropes, this genre would not exist. Goosebumps would not exist. Tales from the Crypt sure as hell would not exist. Creepshow wouldn't exist. Certain authors like Stephen King, they would never have gotten the inspiration they did. And a lot of their best stories in this short, at least in like Stephen King's short fiction or Joe Hill's short fiction, his son for that matter, they use these tropes. Some more than others. It depends on the writer, right? But you get what I'm saying? Like, without these tropes, we would have no horror anthology, right? Now, it begs the question, what makes a good horror anthology story? Are there more tropes out there that are used? Am I leaving a lot untalked about and undiscovered in this video? Well, I'm going to open the conversation up to you all. I know there's some other tropes that I did not include in here that are definitely prevalent in places like short fiction, like in particular like short stories and books, while these ones I talked about are mainly circumvented in everything, but I would say mostly in television, comic books, and short stories. But yeah, let me know if there's any other tropes that you think are commonly done in the subgenre. Like I said throughout the video, let me know about the challenge you did if you decided to participate in it. And also, if you wanted to share your picks or for your favorite stories involving each individual trope, also put that down in the comment section as well. Thank you all for listening if you watched the whole video. And tune in the future for similar discussion topics as I talk about this subgenre, because I'm passionate about it and I want to see out there how many of you are also as passionate about it as well. Till next time, take care and stay spooky.